morning. Lovely to see you all again today. Thank you so much for joining us for our second day of Climate Action Week. It's so good to see you all. Just going to get myself arranged properly here. Hang on. There we go. That's better. Right, let's get today started. Today, we're going to learn about all kinds of things about our human footprint, but first, we're going to have a little recap. And we're going to look at some of the lovely things that you have sent in to us. So first, let's look at all the lovely things that you've sent in to us so far. And don't forget, you can send things all throughout the whole week, and we would love to show them and share them with everyone. First of all, we've got this lovely tweet from Dunefoot Primary School, and I'm loving all the layers that you've got on there. Indeed. I bet you were very, very warm in all of that. Good job for being such a good sport about it all. And they said they particularly enjoyed that demonstration and are looking forward to the rest of the lessons. And next we have Maderty Primary School, I believe, or Maddiston Primary School. Not sure which one it is. But this is Mrs. Swanston's class and some lovely pictures of them exploring climate change for Climate Action Week. And another very good sport there. Well done. Carnegie Primary School in Dunfermline. And I can see you've got your plastic bags on your experiments, so well done there. Please do let us know how the experiment turns out, because we'd really be interested to know what you thought of the questions beforehand and if you got them right. If you were right, if your thoughts were right. And next we've got Hillwood Primary School settling in for our first day of lessons. Remember that if you're joining us today without having seen yesterday's lesson, you can watch it, the recorded version, on our website, and I'll pop the link in the chat when I'm finished here. But we're also going to go over what we've learned, so don't worry. And Dunefoot Primary also have already started their Craftivism posters. And if I'm not mistaken, is that a puffin that I see? I love puffins. I can't wait to see your poster. And P4 at Balfron Primary School also having a great time learning more about climate action. Well done. Now, here's the tricky bit. For those of you that were here yesterday, have a think about what you can remember from yesterday. And if you weren't able to join us yesterday, that's okay, because from these slides, you'll get a good idea of what we did, and you can always watch the recorded lesson later. Just going to move my screen. There we go. Right. Can anyone remember how hot does it get on the moon when it faces the sun? Pop your answers in the chat. See if you can remember. To be able to see your chat, so I'm just rearranging my screen here. Let's see if I can see. Oh, wow, lots of really good answers. So hot you can fry an egg. Does anyone remember how quickly that egg would fry? Because it's quite a scary figure. Yep, over 100 degrees. Very good, very good. 1 second, that's right, under a second. You're right. So on the moon, when it faces the sun, it is over 100 degrees, and you're right, that egg would fry ready to eat in less than a second. And does anyone remember how cold does it get when the sun is not on the moon, when the moon is not facing the sun? I've seen lots of very, very cold numbers there. Done. Minus 130 degrees. Lots of people saying that. Well done. 7 times colder. Wow. Someone's been doing maths. Good job. That's right. It's negative 130 degrees, which doesn't even bear thinking about, really. It would freeze very quickly. Now, can anyone remember why that happens? Because this was the idea of this example. Does anyone remember why it gets so cold and so hot on the moon? Some good answers in the chat. Well done. Because, yes, because there's no atmosphere, right? So there's no greenhouse effect on the moon. There's nothing to protect it from those extreme temperatures. Good job. Now, because the moon has no atmosphere, it doesn't have what we call the greenhouse effect. And thanks to the fact that we do have an atmosphere, all life on Earth is possible because we're protected from those extreme temperatures. As the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere trap some of that heat that bounces back from the Earth, it acts like a jacket. You remember, you can see all the pictures of layers of clothes that people were wearing, right? So that keeps the heat in. Some planets do have an atmosphere, but it's not as perfect as ours. Well, perfect for our kind of life, which is why there's no life on them at the moment. So, for example, Mars has an atmosphere, but it's 100 times thinner than ours. So its average temperature is minus 63 degrees. Doesn't sound very comfortable to me. Now, our atmosphere gives us this lovely greenhouse effect thanks to certain gases. So we call them greenhouse gases because they trap all that warmth. Now, can you remember any greenhouse gases? I'll put them in the chat. See if you can remember any of their names. Oh, well done. You were paying attention. Good job. Yep. Lots of good answers there. Nice. Hey, good job. So we've got CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, and F gases. You remember F gases have two names. We used to call them CFCs, and now we call them F gases. Right. Now, one more question. Can you remember what releases carbon dioxide or CO2? What kinds of things do we do in our everyday life that might release carbon dioxide? Someone being very clever in the chat there and saying plants. Nice. Yep. Huh? Us humans. Plants, trees. Yep. So all of these things. Bridges, not quite yet. Nope. So we've got cars using electricity, heating water for showers, washing machines, transport using electricity. And how about methane? What releases that? Those of you saying people, you're right. Yes, we're looking for, it is people. We're looking for specific examples of activities that might release those things. Methane, food waste, electricity, fertilizer. Good job. Yep. Cows and sheep reared in big numbers. Putting food waste in the wrong place. Remember, we were talking about the difference between food waste going to landfill and food waste being composted where it belongs. Food waste doesn't go in the bin with landfill waste, does it? Right, and now how about nitrous oxide? Remember what releases nitrous oxide? Good job, you guys were paying loads of attention. That's right, it's fertilizers. And the last one, F gases or CFCs. Where would we find those? Oh, well done. That's right, refrigerators and also air conditioning, which is less common in homes here, but many places around the world have air conditioning in people's homes. Yeah, freezers too. Yep, fridge freezers. Right, so you can remember what's happening now that we're producing so much more greenhouse gas than what there should be in our atmosphere. What do you think is happening? Now that we're making too much of a good thing. do you think is happening too much? Like wearing too many clothes. Yeah, exactly. All those extra greenhouse gases are trapping too much heat and making our planet become warmer, which is making our weather become a bit unpredictable. Done. You guys have an amazing memory. And I hope if you haven't yet watched yesterday's lesson, that you enjoy watching it. And now, for our next workshop, I'd like to introduce my lovely colleague, Nicola Davidson, who is going to talk to us about our human footprint and the kinds of things that we can do about it. Take it away, Nicola. I'm going to stop sharing now and you can take it away.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kat. So good morning, everybody. It's really nice to have so many people here for our second talk of Climate Action Week. So hopefully you can all see and hear me. I think I've seen a couple of people have been having problems with their sound. So hopefully those can be resolved. We'll keep putting notes in the chat to help you get your sound sorted. So as Kat wonderfully introduced me and recapped on what Josh talked about yesterday, I'm going to talk today about our human footprint. And we're going to think about the kind of impacts that we have on the world around us and what we can do to make those footprints maybe a little bit better. So to start with, I've got a quote that I'd like you to try and complete. So the start of the quote is "with great power." And I'm going to give you a little clue because some of you might be quite into superhero films. And there's a certain superhero, that's a clue for the superhero that has this quote in their film. Does anybody know what the end of this line is? With great power. Oh, I can see there's lots of good superhero fans just like me. Excellent. Brilliant. Lots of people know this one. So absolutely, with great power comes great responsibility. So it didn't come originally from Spider-Man, but it was very much popularized by Spider-Man. And so what we want to think about today is how much power you have to influence the world around you, because it's often a lot more than you might think, and thinking about how we can best use that power to help our planet. Because as Josh said yesterday, we do have quite a few problems at the moment. So what we want to start thinking about today is what can we do about it? What can we do to help? So what we need to know first is what's happening with our world. And Josh talked about how greenhouse gases are warming the planet up. But let's think about some of the other things and how we influence the world around us. So you're going out for a walk on a winter's day and you see a footprint that looks like this. What do you think might have made a footprint that looks like that? Oh, some interesting ideas in. Oh, quite a few thinking the same thing, quite a few thinking different things. So there's some really interesting ideas. This is actually, just as a little side, this is a really fun thing to go and look for footprints when you're out and about as well, because it can be really good to try and work out. Oh, we've got lots of good ideas. Oh no, I wish it was a dinosaur. Unfortunately, we're not going to see any of those anymore, but it does look a bit like a dinosaur, doesn't it? Fantastic. So quite a few of you getting it. I'm really liking some of these answers. That's amazing. So I'll give you the photo credit, which gives you a little bit more of a clue. I would really like it to be a penguin as well, but it is a deer, and a red deer. So these are a really common animal in Scotland. So let's have a think about the impact that a deer has on its environment, because every single living thing, plants and animals in this world, have an impact on the world around them. So a deer is going to have an impact by what it eats. So it goes out and it eats grass and it eats bark from trees and it eats young trees and it eats leaves. And then it also has an impact by the things that come out of the deer. So its wee and its poo lie around on the ground, and they change things in the soil, and they feed certain things, and they damage certain things. And then just as the deer move around, so if you think about that lovely footprint, as the deer's walking around, it's putting pressure on the ground, it's moving things around. Everything the deer does has a bit of an influence on the world around it. And what can happen with deer and with any other animal or plant where we get too many of them is they start to really change the world around them. So it really starts to change because there's so many of them, all those footprints, all those impacts really start to make a big difference. And in Scotland, what we have found is that where we get lots and lots and lots of deer, we go from these kind of lovely lush forests where we've got lots of trees, which is just actually where the deer love to spend their time. They really like being in forests. And we go from this to something that maybe looks a bit more like this, where because the deer eat bark on trees, they can damage the trees. And if they often eat young trees, so baby trees, and that stops new trees from growing. And so we end up with an area where there's not very many trees. And so we end up with this different environment. And actually, that's not so good for the deer because they've now got a world where they've not got lots of trees that they like to hide in, and they feel a bit more scared and they're not so happy. So it's a bit kind of like what was happening with our world, is that we're getting so many of us, all of these footprints and impacts are having an effect, and they're starting to change the world and make it not actually as good for us as we'd like it to be. So that's a deer. What about us? So I'd like you to think about some of the things that Josh talked to you about yesterday, and just in general, what about human footprints? So think about all the influences that you have and everybody around you has on the world around them. So can you think about what kind of impacts you have? What things do we do that change the world around us? And think of good things as well as bad things. It's not all bad. So what things change the world around? What do we do that changes the world around us? You can think about some of the examples I gave for the deer. Oh, great. So we've got some answers coming in. Brilliant. Using a car, walking, litter. Inventions. Oh, that's a really good one there. So we're starting to see some positive ones as well. Lots of different things. Exploring, that's a good one. Planting trees, chopping down trees. We've got lots of different things. Brilliant. So many really good answers here. So many things thinking about, you've got really good ideas about all the different things that people do and change the world around them. That's really brilliant. Fantastic. So some of the things, and you've mentioned loads of them actually that I've got here. So we farm. So quite a few people were saying that we have to eat food, so we create our food. So we might chop down trees in order to grow our crops. We change the land to grow our food. We have to get machines and things to go and grow our food for us. So yeah, someone's just popped up with farming as well. Brilliant. We also need lots of energy. So just like, you talked about with Josh yesterday about all the things that we do. So people mentioned driving and cars and getting places. Also things like the stuff that we use, all the things that we need. And I can see electricity just popping up there. So we have to create all of the energy to do all of the things that we want to do. And then quite a few people mentioned litter and waste. So we have a lot of waste from all of the things that we do. So the waste that comes from our bodies and the waste from all the stuff that we use. And some of these things we can do positive things. Often it feels quite a lot, doesn't it, that maybe we're not having a great impact on the world around us. But let's maybe think about the other side, because I saw quite a few people were starting to think about some of the good things. So we create art, we create beautiful pictures, we create music and dance and theatre and all these amazing things that make this world really interesting, exciting. We tell stories to each other. So we have this amazing creative capacity, which is really unique in the animal world. No one else, creates art like people do. That's an amazing thing. And quite a few people said inventions in STEM, so science and technology, engineering, maths. We grow our knowledge and we create inventions that make the world a better place for us and for the rest of the world. So we have amazing things that we can do with science, and we can learn so much about the world. And we also have charity and kindness. Humans are actually really, really kind, and they're really, really good at cooperating with each other. I know it can sometimes seem like we're not, and then we have lots of fights, but actually we're really, really good at looking after each other and helping each other. And lots of people said things like planting trees and flowers. And we can go, we have a desire to make the world better, which is an amazing thing to have. And that's the difference between us and the deer. So the deer has all these influences around it, and if we get too many deer, it changes the world, and they end up with not enough trees, and they're not so happy. But they can't do anything about that because they don't have the brain capacity to decide to go and do something else and to change what they're eating. They just eat what's in front of them. Humans are able to change their footprints. We can change the shape and the size of what we do so that we have a nicer impact on the world, doing all some of these amazing things that you guys have been coming up with there, doing these positive things to help the environment. And that is our superpower. So you have a superpower. As humans, we're the only species in the world that can do this. So that's your superpower. So I want you to remember that you are really amazing just by being a person. So if we think we might want to try and make our footprints a little bit better, a bit more positive, try and do a bit more of the amazing good things that you guys have been coming up with this morning, we kind of need to know a little bit more about some of the things that we do and think about actually some of the influences around us, because sometimes it's a bit unclear. So we're going to start with an example, and it's an example that I really like, and I think probably quite a lot of you will like eating as well. So rather than thinking about a person that has so many things that we've already said, we're going to think of one simple thing and look at its footprint. So we're going to think about the footprint of a yummy, yummy chocolate bar, which is one of my favorite things to eat. So what I want you to think about is, what do you need to make a chocolate bar? And I don't want you to put it in the chat, please. Please don't put your answers in the chat, because I want everybody to have time to have a think about this one. So this is a chocolate bar here. This is a milk chocolate bar. We're just looking at this chocolate bar as an example. I want you to think, and you can either write it down, or maybe you could have a chat in your class, but don't put this one in the chat, because I want you, like I say, I want you to have a think and see how many things you can get without looking. So what do you think goes into make that chocolate bar? All the things you need, the basic ingredients to make that chocolate bar. And I'm going to give you a minute or so to have a think about it. So I say, write it down, have a chat, and then I'll give you the answers in a second. So see how many things you can get. I'm going to give you another 20 seconds or so. What goes into this chocolate bar? Okay. So you might have not have thought of everything, but hopefully you've thought of a few things that go into a chocolate bar. We've got a few coming up there. So this is my list of these things. Now, different chocolate bars will have different things in them. This is just for a fairly basic chocolate bar. So we've got cocoa beans, which is what gives chocolate its amazing flavour. We've got sugar to make it sweet, because cocoa isn't sweet on its own. We've got milk, because it was a milk chocolate bar. So I think so I can see some of you who are putting your answers in now clocked that I said milk chocolate bar, so we need milk. We need some oils. And I'm just going to tell you for now, you don't need to have known this, but quite a lot of oils used in chocolate is what's called palm oil and shea oil. But there's oil goes in there to make the texture all nice. And then quite a couple people got the wrapping. So we need foil and we need plastic to make the packaging on this particular chocolate bar. And I know different chocolate bars have different packaging, so it's just this one as an example. So how many did you get? Have a think about how many of those did you get? Hopefully you got quite a few of them. And some people are starting to think about that. Oh, I can see there's already some people starting to think about the impact. So let's start to think about where do we get all these things? Because we're used to, we go and we get a chocolate bar and we're used to just having it. What about where all these things come from? So we're going to have a look at a beautiful map of the world. So this is a bit of a I kind of stylize a cartoon map of the world, and we're going to have a little look at where some of these things come from. Okay, so we started with cocoa beans. So cocoa beans are farmed and farmed in a few different parts of the world, but the biggest producer is Africa and a country called the Côte d'Ivoire. So that's us here. Here's the Côte d'Ivoire in Africa. So that's where we're going to get our cocoa beans. Oh, I can see a couple of people having problems with seeing the slides. They should still be working. Seems to be that something, so something's work. You might find if you have, what you need to do is if sometimes you can actually scroll through the slides yourself. So you might, if you see a little arrow under the slides, you might need to click through or click something that says live sync with presenter. But thank you very much for those who are working. So I'm going to just carry on just now. Thank you very much, everybody. So we've got our cocoa beans coming from the Côte d'Ivoire in Africa. And then we're going to get some sugar. So our sugar is going to come in the form of sugar cane, which looks like a big kind of chunky bamboo cane. And we're going to get that from Central America, a country called Belize, which produces a lot of sugar. Then we needed some milk. So milk we can get a bit closer to home. So we're going to get some milk from England in the southwest, where there's lots and lots of dairy farms. Then we said we needed some oil. So we need some palm oil. And the palm oil is going to come from Indonesia in Asia. And we wanted some shea oil, and that comes from, again, Africa, so more things from Africa, so from Nigeria. And then we need the things to make the packaging, so we needed some foil. So foil, you can get recycled foil, but in this case, we're going to get some brand new foil, so we have to dig that out, the metal to make that out of the ground, and that's going to come from China in Asia. And finally, we needed the plastic. So plastic is made from oil. So the same thing that we use to sort out your to fuel your cars, to fuel lots of different things. We can also turn that into plastic. So we're going to dig up some oil from the North Sea and we're going to turn that into our plastics. And so if we connect all of these, we can see we've kind of got this big web of connection, and look how big that footprint is. Covers a lot of the world for just one thing. So it's, if we can start to maybe think about where do some of our things come from and how much of the bits of them do we actually need, we can start to maybe think about how to make that footprint maybe just a bit better and not to have as big an impact on the world. So I want some ideas now. So we want to think about how we can make that chocolate bar footprint a bit smaller and a bit better. So think about all those places where things come from. And what I want you to think about is how can you use what's called your consumer power. So I said you've got these superpowers to change the world around you. So consumer power is the power that you have in things that you buy. So what you buy, which options of what you buy, and how much you buy. So what do you think we could do? How could we change what we buy to make the chocolate footprint a little bit better? Anyone get any ideas? What could we change about the options that we have, so the options we choose when we're selecting a chocolate bar? Oh, brilliant. So we've already got some coming in. So recycled paper, wrapper and foil. Brilliant. Yeah, less packaging. locally recycled packaging. So rather than having to bring that foil all the way from China, we could change that. We could use recycled oil, which uses a lot less energy, to try and actually do that. So that's made our footprint a bit smaller. Let's see, what else have we got? Less sugar. So yeah, we could use less some of the ingredients. We've got someone said fair trade. So that's really good. Yeah, quite a few people saying fair trade. Sorry, it's so many good ideas, I can't keep up. So fair trade is really good because that means that the farmers of the things like the chocolate and the sugar get a fair price for what they're producing. And that means that they can afford to feed their families and look after their families. It means their children can go to school. And it means they've got more help to look after their environment. So that's good. That's made it smaller. Oh, I can see we've got even more. We've got, oh, there's a good one. So we've got a few people saying local products. So local dairies is good. So obviously we can't unfortunately grow cocoa in this country, but we can grow sugar from sugar beets. So Locknell Primary, well done for coming up with that one. So we could get the sugar a bit more locally. Although we want to make sure that we're still growing it in a way that's not damaging to the environment. So that's good. And I can see a few people coming up with one that is also a really good way of reducing our footprint with this, is eating less. So just having a bit less chocolate, if we know that that's got quite a big impact, maybe we can eat things that maybe have a bit less of an impact. We don't have to cut them out entirely, but maybe just thinking about our choices to make things a bit better. Oh, we've got an interesting question. So someone's asking if gluten-free would increase or decrease our impact. That's a really good question. So I think it would depend on exactly what the ingredients were in the gluten-free chocolate compared to a normal chocolate bar, but it's probably not likely to make a massive difference. But yes, so many great ideas there. So vegan products, growing less chocolate, eating less chocolate, thinking about things like fair trade, changing the ingredients. So people have we mentioned sugar beet, another person's just there mentioned rapeseed oil that's local rather than palm oil, changing the packaging, all brilliant. So now I want you to think of something else. So there's another way that we can change the footprints. So change the footprint of a chocolate bar, or in fact change the footprint of lots of things around us and how and impacts that we have. And this is actually an even more powerful way. So all the things that you suggested are absolutely brilliant, and we definitely need to do a lot of those. But one thing that we can do that has even more impact is to use our voices. Because if we use our voices, particularly if we work together and use lots of voices, we can have a really, really massive impact, and we can make big changes to how the world works. And things that we said earlier, the things that you guys said you don't like, that we can work really hard to change those and change them in a lot bigger way. So let's give you an example of how using your voices and working together can help. So often we find that children have the power to, you guys can see things from outside, and you're not afraid to ask questions, which is good. Never, ever stop asking questions. And so a school in Cornwall, they were asking questions because they really wanted to support Comic Relief, but they didn't like the fact that Comic Relief had plastic noses. So the red noses are great, they're really good fun, but they're plastic. And they were worried about the amount of litter and waste that was being created from buying these plastic noses. So they wrote to Comic Relief and they campaigned and they worked together. And now Comic Relief doesn't use plastic noses, they make plant-based noses. So by working together and using their voices, they changed something about the world and made it a better place. They changed their footprint. So that's my challenge for you today, is I want you to think about things in the world that you want to change and things that you'd like to see done differently or done better. And I want to challenge you to write an email or a letter to someone who's got the option to try and help make that change. So maybe someone in a company, maybe someone in the local council, maybe someone, your local MP, so member of parliament. Think about what you want to change, and then write a letter or an email to change it. And what I want you to do as well is I would like to ask you to work together. So rather than just writing all your own letters, you can write your own letters, but send them all together, or write a letter as a group or as a class or even as a whole school and put all of your names on it. And the more of these kind of letters that you can write, the better. So just to give you some examples, so have a think about what you would quite like to change for this challenge. So you might want to change I know we've had a lot of talk about plastic, and I know a lot of you are really switched on about all the problems we have with excess packaging and litter. So here's just a few things where maybe we don't need all of this plastic and all of this packaging. Is there something in your life that you've seen where you think there's too much packaging? I don't like this. I want the company that makes these things to change what they're doing. So you could write to them. Or maybe when we were talking, Josh was talking yesterday, a lot of the problems we're getting with global warming come from releasing greenhouse gases. And a lot of that comes from producing energy. So have a think about what energy are we using that we don't need to. So for example, in Berlin, in Germany recently, they turned off lights in public buildings that weren't needed, and they turned off the hot water in public toilets because they didn't need to use that energy, and that saved lots of energy, which will have saved lots of greenhouse gases from being released. So think about some of the things that Josh talked about yesterday, where greenhouse gases are getting released. Are there other things that you could do, that you could write to people to ask them to change, to try and make that change that you want to see? Use your voices. So if you do want to write a letter or an email, we do have some templates in the resources folder to help get you started, so that you've got a guide as to how to write them, so that they've got a good structure, and that makes them have more impact. It makes people pay attention to them more. Also, little tip for you, if you do decide to write a letter or an email, find out a specific person to send it to. So rather than just writing it to a company, find out who in the company makes decisions about what you want to change, or find out the name of the head of the company and write to them. Same if you want to write to a local councillor or someone in the local council or in the Scottish Parliament. Find out the specific name of the person, because it's much more likely to be read if you send it to a specific person. So that's my challenge for you today. So you have the power. You have so much power. It's amazing. So what I want to challenge you today to do is to use it responsibly. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this session. And I will now hand you back over to the wonderful Kat, who's going to just give you a couple of closing remarks. And good luck with your letter and email writing. Thank you very much.
That was brilliant, Nicola. Thank you so much. I really loved the example of the chocolate bar. That was a really good example. I'm just trying to get my slides to behave themselves. There we go. Present. Technology. There we go. There we go. And it started at the beginning. That's okay. Right. So thank you, Nicola, for your amazing lesson and for telling us all about our human footprint and for being so positive about what things that we can do to make a difference. I'm really excited to hear about your letter writing. If you choose to write a letter, please let us know. And also, if you get an answer, please let us know too, because that would be really exciting to hear about. So a reminder of the other things that we've asked you to do this week. The first one is to carry out a litter pick, because too much litter outside is a bad thing. It's all linked to consumption. It's all linked to climate change. So one of our activities this week is to go outside and clean up a space near you. Let us know how you get on. Show us pictures if you can, because we love seeing pictures. All right, and the best thing of all, this Craftivism competition, with the winning class will receive a prize of a virtual tour of either Edinburgh Zoo or Highland Wildlife Park. You get to choose. And a wildlife camera trap for your school, so you can see what kinds of wildlife are using your school grounds as their habitat. And just remember that the assignment basically is to make a poster of a Scottish animal that's affected by climate change, and you'll be using bits of paper to make a mosaic like Paul Bartlett's work here with the puffins. It doesn't have to be a puffin. Puffins just happen to be my favorite, but it could be any Scottish animal affected by climate change. And also we're asking you to also please sign the pledge that's on our website. Put the link in the chat quickly before we go, and that is to ask world leaders to take action on climate change and to also pledge to take action in your school yourselves through our education programs with Climate Action Schools. So remember, if you have any questions about today's lesson, if you'd like to stump Nicola with a question about what she's taught us today, please send your question to ecoschools@keepscotlandbeautiful.org. And we are gathering up all the questions that you've sent in so far, and we will share the answers at our assembly on Friday, which everyone is welcome to attend. And just remember that on Friday, we're really hoping to have a special guest of our First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, will be hopefully able to join us to say hello. All going well. And remember also that we love seeing your work. We love seeing you wave at us and say hello and send a photo of you watching our lesson or carrying out any of the activities or experiments that we're doing today. It's the same email address, ecoschools@keepscotlandbeautiful.org, or you can share them with us on our social media channels. We're at KSB Scotland pretty much everywhere. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again tomorrow, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.